Welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome here for the first time. My name is Hawkins. I'm a singer-songwriter and travel vlogger, and for the past month, I've been living here in Lisbon, Portugal.
I'm working on my foreign voice.
Even though a month is absolutely not enough time in Lisbon because there is so much to do, it was enough time to get a really nice introduction to the city. So I thought I'd share with you what I've learned in my couple of weeks here and some of the things that I will very much miss as I go on to my next location. The first thing that I absolutely have to talk about are the people. One of the reasons I was so interested to move to Lisbon was because of the big digital nomad scene here. I think generally when you look at lists of top cities in the world for digital nomads, Lisbon is always in the top 5. And now I know why. The interesting thing about the Lisbon digital nomad scene as compared to Playa del Carmen, where I was a couple months ago, is that people tend to come to Lisbon for a bit longer. Playa del Carmen tends to have a lot of people coming and going. So there were people that were there for like 3 weeks or less or a month, like myself. But here in Lisbon, I've met people that are here for 6 months to 3 years. The digital nomad scene here is so great because it's so active. I feel like there's an event every night of the week. It's impossible to go to all of them. I highly recommend checking out meetup.com. There's also a Lisbon digital nomads Slack workspace. So that was really cool just to get to know people and see what other people were up to. Because of this digital nomad population, but also because it's just a major city in Europe, there's a lot of English spoken here. I always try to learn at least a few words in the local language wherever I go because I think it's just a sign of respect. I don't like to ever assume that people are gonna speak English just because I do. So while you definitely can get by with English here, I always recommend hello, thank you, excuse me, have a nice day. At the very least, those are a good basic few. Obviously, I've talked a lot about the digital nomad scene here because that was something I was pretty involved in, but I have to talk about how wonderful the local Portuguese people are. Everyone here is so nice and inviting and welcoming, and I think that that's a big reason why so many people choose to move to Lisbon. The next topic I want to cover is transportation. Now, when I say transportation, I kind of mean just getting around in general, because most of the time I was just walking around Lisbon. It's a very small city, and while there are many very steep hills, it is pretty walkable as long as, you're okay with hills. The metro only has 4 lines, but they're pretty well connected, so getting across town or getting to the airport is actually really easy and also very affordable. I think it's €1.50 each way. Because of the metro, and also just because Lisbon is very small, you really don't have to live in the center in order to be well connected to things. I definitely thought when I was moving here that the place that we ended up in was a little bit farther out. I think I was, first of all, wrong about how far it was, but also there are so many cool things all over the city. Nice bars, nice restaurants. It's not like everything is in one neighborhood, and if you're outside of that, you gotta commute. There's really cool stuff everywhere. Lisbon is also a great home base for taking some day trips. When we were here, we did Cascais and Belém, which I believe Belém is actually still in Lisbon, but it's still a bit of a day trip. I also did Sintra the last time I was in Lisbon, which I loved. I highly recommend. So when you take a day trip out of Lisbon, generally you're probably going to be taking the train. And an important thing to note is that you can use the same tickets as you use for the metro or the tram or the bus, but you can't have money on it already. So when you put money on your card to use the metro, you then, if you still have money on that card, can't refill it for the train. I don't understand why. If you just put $1.50 on, use your $1.50 on the metro, and then you can put money on for the train, that's fine. But we did have an issue where we had to buy like a bunch of extra cards, even though they're only, I think, 50 cents. It was still, we could have planned that a bit better. I really recommend buying your tickets early if you're going on a Saturday, because we waited in line so long when we were going to Cascais because it is the beach and it was Saturday and it was beautiful weather. So the entire city of Lisbon seemed to also be buying tickets at the same time. So I recommend planning ahead. The thing about the train though is that it's really cheap. So I think the metro is €1.50, and if you're taking the train to Cascais or Belém, it's like €3 each way. So it's all super affordable, and there's so many different places you can go to from Lisbon. So day trips, add them to the list, but buy your tickets in advance or you'll spend half the day waiting in line. Also, Uber is super cheap in Lisbon. I took it in from the airport and it was like €8, which is not too bad. The next category, of course, is food and drink. Generally, food and drink in Lisbon is pretty cheap. If you go out to a restaurant or you go out to a cafe or a bar, it's gonna be pretty low prices. However, grocery stores are not that cheap. So the way that you're saving money tends to be more when you're going out to eat. But if you're like me and food is where you like to save money and not go out, there's not that big of a difference here. Speaking of going out to eat, you may already know that people in Lisbon tend to eat dinner on the later side, maybe 9, 10, maybe even later. But what you might not know is that restaurants actually tend to close between lunchtime and dinner time. So if you personally want to go for like a 6 o'clock dinner, you're not going to be able to. I remember my first Friday in Lisbon, we tried to go out to dinner and we knew to wait until about 9 o'clock. But what we didn't know is that you really need to make reservations in this city. So we went to like 4 or 5 restaurants and they were all completely full. Now granted, it was a Friday night, but generally that was kind of my experience with restaurants is you need to make a reservation. When you go out to eat, a lot of places do take card, but occasionally you'll find a cash only restaurant. So always have a little bit of cash on you just in case. Same goes for bars. I think every cafe I went to took card, but yeah, smaller bars, smaller restaurants might be cash only. So just prepare for that. Tipping culture here is pretty different from what I'm used to in the US. Obviously, if you don't tip in the US, that is bad. You should tip, but here it's not expected. It is appreciated, however. So I do think that especially if you're coming from another part of the world and you're a visitor in Portugal, leave a tip. Just even if it's a couple euros, I think it makes a difference. One good thing to note though is if you're trying to leave a tip with your credit card, it's not like in the US where you get charged and then you get a receipt and you can add a tip on later. You have to tell them before they charge your card how much you'd like to tip. So when they tell you how much it costs, you can say, all right, instead charge me this amount, and they will, and then they know that that is their tip. Like I said before, Lisbon is definitely considered to be one of the cheaper cities in Western Europe. That said, you can find ways to spend a lot of money here if you want to or if you're not being careful. I've definitely noticed that there are places that sell €5 cocktails that are just like a block further than the places that sell €8 or €9 cocktails. So doing a little research never hurts, and just wander around a bit and explore. Or get the €9 cocktail. It's up to you, it's up to you. I will say, if you're looking for a little snack on the way home after a few €4 or €5 cocktails, it might be difficult to find. We did not have a lot of luck with late night food. I think maybe if you're in Bairro Alto, which is generally the kind of going out neighborhood, there might be places, but we didn't really see many. The next category is super important if you're looking to move to Lisbon, and it is accommodation. I think that we might have spent close to 2 months looking for a place online before we found our place in Lisbon. Now, we had a lot of restrictions. We weren't already in the city, and we knew that we were only renting for a very short period, so any place with a long minimum rental period was not going to work for us. In the end, we were able to find an Airbnb in Graça, which is a neighborhood that I absolutely love and highly recommend if you're unsure what area of the city to move to. In general, do note that any place you find on Airbnb is going to be significantly more expensive than the average rental price here in Lisbon. So it worked out for us, but if we were staying longer than just 1 month, we would have gone in a different direction, I'd say. I think generally when people are starting their accommodation search here in Lisbon, they might start with Bairro Alto or Alfama, 2 of the more touristy but very, very central neighborhoods here in Lisbon. I know that when we found our place in Graça, I was a little worried that it might be too far from the center or that we were gonna have to take a metro everywhere that we go. And really what I've found is because Lisbon is just not that big of a city, you can live farther out. I don't even really think Graça is considered farther out because it still feels very, very central. And there's just so much to do in our own neighborhood. And also the center of town is like a 20-minute walk. So I would recommend being open to living maybe a little bit farther out from the main neighborhoods in Lisbon because there's so many cool areas here. Unfortunately, I can't recommend our exact Airbnb because they are selling the property, which is sad because I would totally stay here again. But I can recommend the neighborhood of Graça. There are definitely several other digital nomads, expats on our street and in this area. So if you're looking for that community, it's here. If you're looking for locals, it's also here. It's just a really nice mix, and it's also a pretty artsy neighborhood, which, you know, as an artist myself, I do really enjoy that aspect. Lastly, I just want to share a few thoughts on the general culture here in Lisbon. I definitely knew when I was moving here that I could expect very good weather, and I was right. I think it rained all of 2 times when we were here, and this past weekend, the sky was really gray, and it was strange. The sky is blue every day, and it's really weird when it's not. It's kind of unsettling. I will say that there's a pretty big difference between April and May. We moved here the last week of April, and it was kind of cold. I was definitely wearing like fuzzy socks and a jumper, but then as soon as May hit, it was tank top weather. I have heard that the winters in Lisbon can be pretty cold, maybe not by like New York standards, but I know that a lot of the older buildings here don't necessarily have central heating in the way that we might expect. So pack accordingly. It is great weather, but maybe not every single day of the year. Lisbon has a very laid back, kind of casual vibe to it. And one of the great things about that is this thing that we've been calling Lisbon time. What I mean by Lisbon time is, let's say you're going to an open mic night that starts at 8 o'clock. And let's say, hypothetically, you are running very late for said open mic night, even though you're supposed to perform at it. And let's say maybe you get to the open mic night at 8:20 and you're worried that you've missed your performance slot. Well, good news, 8 o'clock Lisbon time is 8:30, so you're actually 10 minutes early. Hypothetically, obviously, that was hypothetical. Lisbon definitely has a thriving art and music scene, which as a musician was very exciting to get to be a small part of during my time here. There's so much that I think I didn't get to though, so I do need to come back and experience that a bit more. There's definitely a community of musicians within the digital nomad community here, which is just very nice because it means you end up seeing the same people at different events, and I think that that's just a really nice way to build community. I could go on and on and on about all the things I love about Lisbon, but I have a flight to catch tomorrow morning, so you'll have to stay tuned to see where I'm headed next. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave me a comment. Let me know what big Lisbon specific things I left out, because I know I'm gonna be back to the city at some point. If you haven't subscribed, I hope that you will. I have lots of new videos coming soon that I can't wait to share with you. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.
I'm working on my forehead.